Thank you so much for coming out today to our Top Guns award panel. My name is Lindsay Thompson. I'm Associate Editor with the North American Hardware and Paint Association, and I'm really excited. This is my first NHPA All Industry Conference, so it's great to be with you today. This program from the North American Hardware and Paint Association recognizes key home improvement operators for their successes and their strategic solutions, and also recognizes those who are committed to their operations, their communities, their teams, and the independent channel at large. The retailers on stage today lead operations that are pillars in their communities and are on track for continued growth. These retailers have focused on their missions from the beginning, but certainly over the last year, and have led teams that have exhibited strength and perseverance. Today we'll learn more about their retail and operation philosophies, how they are navigating challenges like supply chain and hiring labor, and where they see the independent channel going into the future. So thank you so much for joining us today. So one component of NHPA's mission is to bring retailers together from across the industry, regardless of their wholesale affiliation, operation size, or type. And in practice, this allows us to showcase the diversity of the independent channel. That certainly rings true with the retailers we have on stage with us today. So while they are all independent operators serving similar customer bases, their paths to this channel are remarkably unique. I'm going to let each Top Gun here tell their story. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Mike Bracken, take it away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've had hardware or lumber and hardware in my blood. My great-grandfather founded a company, Payless Cashways, back during the Depression, and that's where my grandfather, my grandmother. Everyone worked in Payless Cashways, and my father, he got his start with Payless Cashways as well. Well, after they became a public company and everything changed, and my dad didn't play politics very well, so he quit and he started his own operation in 1975. At that time, I was 16 years old, and basically I already knew my career path. I always wanted to run a lumberyard. I always wanted to be in the lumberyard. So I went to work for my father when I was 16 and have been there ever since. So our company is now in its 46th year, and we're approaching 50 very quickly. So from there, I went through, I worked in the lumberyard, did every job possible, hauling drywall up 3 flights of stairs in downtown Phoenix. That was my first real, do I really want to do something like this? But everything, graduated college and really got in the business and took over the operation in 1986. So that's my story.
Great.
That I'll stick to.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Ian, on to you. Tell us a little bit about your story.
So my story's a little different. I didn't grow up in the hardware business. I was in the semiconductor business in Austin, Texas. I traveled about 140 to 150,000 miles a year in the air. And my lovely wife, Tara, who's in the audience, didn't tolerate that for very long. So we met with Home Hardware and we looked at what we wanted to do, and we realized small town hardware store was what we want to do with our lives and where we want to raise our kids. So we met with Walter Hackborn, the founder of Home Hardware, in a little town north of Toronto in Muskoka called Gravenhurst. That was our first store. Our second store came about 4 years later in Parry Sound, where this young gentleman cottages. And then our third store came about in Bancroft, another cottage country store, this year actually. So we didn't grow up in the business. We're really proud to be a part of that community and all our communities and raise our children in this business, because honestly, there isn't another business model I can think of that is holistic, community, family, and it just ties it all together. So we feel pretty blessed for that.
Great. And Greg, tell us about your path at SunPro.
So mine was certainly an unorthodox path. I come from a family of dentists, so that makes no sense that I'm in the hardware and LBM space. But they love the fact that I had a company car for a while. They really enamored with the fact they get a free company car, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But so I went to the right school. I'm from Toronto, Canada, about an hour north. When Ian mentioned cottage, he understands what a cottage is, and it's like a cabin. It's not like a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs snow-covered little area. It's a larger structure. But I went to University of British Columbia in Vancouver, which is one of the most well-known lumber and really lumber schools in Canada, really in North America. But I studied international relations and Russian, so I was all kinds of mixed up. When I got my degree and wanted to work for the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in the Canadian government, and that didn't pan out, and so I ended up doing my MBA and worked for a specialty company called Spacecraft, which was owned by Weyerhaeuser, and then later on by International Paper. And so my first foray into experience in the LBM space or lumber space was with Weyerhaeuser, and I actually met a guy. This is a great non-LinkedIn story. I met a guy at a rec soccer game. I had been relocated from New York to Utah and was watching my daughter play soccer on a Saturday. And much like Ian, I traveled quite a bit. I just wanted to be to myself and not talk to anybody. He struck up a conversation with me, and I was mildly annoyed. And we talked a few times at games since. He reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, listen, we met for lunch," and what I thought was an innocent "let's be friends" lunch experience turned into a kind of a quasi interview in Chick-fil-A in American Fork, Utah, which is where there's a lot of kids in the play space there. And so it wasn't really conducive to an interview. But anyway, we met, and he was intrigued with the fact that I worked for Weyerhaeuser, and Weyerhaeuser was a large supplier to Sunmont Building Materials at the time. Now it's Sunpro. And one thing led to another, and I'm interviewing, and it was nice to be in an interview setting where, I was heavy on education and light on professional experience when you come out of school, and now I'm thinking, I'm like the full package. I got stuff to offer, and give me some tough questions, and I realized it was more of a culture fit interview, and so I sat down and we talked about random topics, and eventually started working at Sunpro 7 years ago. So the industry kind of found me, and I love it. I mean, to Ian's point, even though I had different career aspirational goals, I did grow up in a small farming community about an hour north of Toronto, and really love the principles that are embedded in a small town community and where you look after one another. And I think the LBM and the hardware space is certainly very emblematic of that. So it's great to be in an industry that really values community centricity and family values and principles.
Yeah, well, great. It's exciting to hear so many different paths to kind of the same end. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about operations and let's talk about hiring. So I know that you all hold your teams at your operations in really high regards. So we're going to ask a couple questions I'd love to hear about how you've been managing or handling hiring in this current labor market, and then the kind of qualities that you look for in an employee. So Mike, I know that at Homeco you guys have a unique hiring strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Believe it or not, right now we are not having a human resource problem. And the reason for that is we're always looking, and we're always looking to hire good people. As my COO, Todd, I'll steal a quote from him. He said, there are no good people out there when you need one. So we've taken the philosophy, we do group interviews once a month, whether we need people or not. We end up hiring maybe one or two or maybe even three people from that group interview process. And our idea is that we're going to hire good people whether we need them or not. By the time they finish their training period of 60 days, we usually have a spot for them. Matter of fact, we always have a spot for them. And a quick story. 2 years ago, a young lady came she applied. Her daughter had worked for us. And her daughter was very happy, and hey, this is, a neat place to work, and I'm, having fun and learning. And so her mother came and went through the interview process, and Todd came to me and said, "Hey, we interviewed a gal yesterday that you need to sit and talk with her." And because I usually don't I'm not in the interview process generally. And we talked with her, and we hired her, and we just knew she could be a manager someday. She came to us with absolutely no experience in the hardware industry. She was the manager of a boat marina at Lake Powell. And she came to us and she started working with us. And a year and a half after we hired her, it was a year and a half or a year. A year after we hired her, she became our store manager. That's how a person with absolutely no experience in the industry, but she was a people person. She loved our culture, she believed in our culture, and she utilized the assets that we gave her to take us up a notch. Last year we had tremendous growth on our retail side of our business, and we would never have been able to handle that with our previous manager because he didn't use the resources and he wasn't a leader. She was unbelievable, and that's somewhat of our story. We've got a great culture, and one last thing. We have a lot of our customers apply to us, and that we've hired. They enjoy shopping our store. They love our culture, and they want to be a part of that team, and it's been quite remarkable. So.
Mike, do you mind commenting on some of those pillars of your culture? I know that you have a little saying, right? The
I impact.
Yeah.
So our core values spell out I impact, and our core values are integrity, innovative thinking, people focused, accountability, communication, and team leadership. I impact. So we use that, and we use our core values to hire, coach, train, and if we have to, fire people. Everything's based on the core values. And we've been working on that for 18 years through Linda Small and Retail People Solutions. It's a great process, and we get a little better every year. And is our culture finished? You know, my people are so good, they'll take it to the next level in the next year, and then we'll take it up a notch the year after that. So I had a hell of an organization of people, and I'm very, very proud and very blessed to have them. So.
Great, thanks, Mike. Greg, can you tell us a little bit about your hiring strategies and what the qualities that you look for in a new hire? Greg, I'll go to you next. Yeah.
That was a fast one.
Yeah.
So Sunpro's vision is building a better community, and then we have 4 core values. We value people is the first. Always give a full measure. Our word is our bond, and quality products and services are the best value. And so, much like Mike mentioned, that governs everything about the Sunpro culture, and we really stick to it, and we hire on that basis, and we let people go on that basis. And so. But to speak specifically about so we are having a labor crisis. I'm really impressed that you're not having a problem hiring people. We have over 500 employees. We're obviously in the hardware space, but we also we're in the insulation space. We have insulation installers. We turnkey frame, finished carpentry. So we're really in the trade space right now, and it's hard to hire no matter the position. And so we now have 5 staffing agencies that I've signed agreements with, all have a different kind of niche and market focus. One is the newest one that I just signed is they actually go door to door in targeted communities and hand out Sunpro's job posting in that area. So we have our truss laborers are in certain areas where we have truss operations are primarily Hispanic, so we'll go to Hispanic communities or wherever we're having the most success in recruiting. But it is really, really hard right now. I mean, the employees that we do have are suffering from marginal burnout because they're working so hard. We're doing and we have postings that sit forever. As the president of Sunpro, I have to see every potential employee application where they have a record. Mm-hmm. And in the past, we would be a little bit more careful, but it's very rare when I don't approve a hire for someone. So we want to see times pass since whatever the indiscretion was, but. It's tough in Utah and Idaho where we operate at this point. So, our strategy is, again, based on our core values and our vision. We won't compromise on that. Mm-hmm. We offer a very, really an unbelievable benefits package. It's unparalleled, at least in our space in the construction business and building material space. So that's helpful, but unless you have vision and maybe a family, you have concerns, or you think about benefits, there's really not a whole lot of value there. So if you pay me $2 more, I'll go and work for another installer or framer elsewhere down the street, right? And so it becomes difficult. We're working through it, but there is definitely a labor crisis right now. I remember in 2017, I thought we reached kind of the bottom of, the labor pool was so thin and shallow, but I think it's much worse now.
Okay, well, thank you. Ian, what's your approach to hiring right now?
So in each one of our stores, we have a big sign with a picture of our Home Hardware's founder, and it says this. It's a quote. It says, "We are not in the hardware store business. We are in the people business." And people are our most valuable asset. So we talk about stuff, and we talk about inventory. We talk about rolling stock. We talk about, real estate. And people are our number one asset. So, similar to Mike, we don't have a hiring or a labor crisis. I think that we're fortunate where we do there's some synergies I think you're going to see on this stage all morning long is we have customers who want to come. They retire as a plumber, they retire as a carpenter, and they say, hey, I've really enjoyed being a customer here. There's lots of laughter, the culture. This is the experience as a customer. I want to come and be part of this. So really, we seek out cashiers' experiences. You go through the in our country, Tim Hortons and yours, Dunkin' Donuts, and you're served really well that morning. Well, you know what? I learned a trick. There's a card that a friend of mine in the audience has. He'll hand that out, and we'll actually talk to that person. And say, are you happy where you are? We're hiring someone today or this week, and that proactive. Let's go find good people when we do need it. So those are our two strategies, and we're fairly blessed to not have a crisis right now, which we have lots of other dealer friends who do. So it's a real problem. I believe it's your people are your biggest asset.
What are some of the qualities of employees that you're looking for that would fit into your culture, Ian? Well,
there's the pre-COVID and the post-COVID discussion. We're a lot more flexible than we used to be. I have to be honest with you. Before it was, here's the job, here are the hours, do you want it? Now it's, what would you like to do? When do you want to work? And how much money do you want to get paid? And see if we can work something out, right? So flexibility is key. Really, it's honesty, integrity. And to Mike's point, they don't have to be experienced. We can train. There's a great training program with the NHPA, and we utilize that. And, we can train you to be that. We can't train you to be a good person, to be a happy person when you come into work. But we can train the skills. So we look for that personality.
Okay, great.
Can I add a comment to that? So
Absolutely.
Along the lines of what Ian said. So I have to just express gratitude to two of my managers, Michelle Steele and Brian Johnson in the stands. Michelle does an outstanding job of managing the part-time schedule. So we have in our store in Springville, which is our flagship retail operation, the bulk of our employees are part-time students, high school students in most cases. And so managing that schedule is a bear every single week. But to Ian's point, you have to be flexible, otherwise you don't have access to that pool of employees, and they are critical to our operation. And secondly, pre-COVID and post-COVID, we have a fairly structured work from home policy where you're fully from home, but we have a common workspace when they come to work and when they need to be there. But we've developed that into a hybrid work from home space, and so those that can do their jobs adequately from home now have that option, whereas pre-COVID they didn't have it. And so you've just got to be flexible and willing to work with them. We haven't gone so far as Ian says, how much do you want to get paid? We don't we don't ask that question. There's still a range, but there is a range at least.
Yeah, great, awesome insights. All right, let's jump into another industry pain point. What is your product sourcing strategies from the last 18 months? Ian, we'll start with you this time. Sourcing, go.
So yesterday, I was sitting in the crowd listening to a panel that Dan was moderating. And Dan said this. He said, right now, the inventory level in hardware stores in North America, our inventory is up 10%. I would guarantee that our inventory in our stores are up 20, 30, or 40%. We are buying everything we can get our hands on. And it is so difficult when you have people and you have real estate and you have signage and branding and culture and your shelves are empty, right? You can't sell from an empty cart. So we're buying everything we can get, truckload if we can get it. We're looking for outside warehousing space to store stuff out of season. I'm utterly frightened for this coming season to see if we're going to have enough stock. So we are in we're just gobbling up everything we get our hands on.
Okay. Greg, let's go to you. Product sourcing.
Yeah, it's the same as Ian. If you can buy it now. In fact, I was talking to Michelle just yesterday, and is industrial adhesives. We're buying pallets of industrial adhesives for our store and distributing to some other locations. But you don't know when you're not going to be able to get it, right? And with the supply chain issues, specifically transportation right now, I know there's, at least in the LBM space, a lot of LBM dealers are double buying, meaning they don't really have a need for that, but they're hoping that maybe the second order might get here before the first order. And so it's certainly a crisis for us. I've got great managers that are doing a great job, managing through it. But when it's there and we know that it's an item that will turn quickly in our operation, we buy it.
Okay, great. Mike.
Wow, if my father knew how much our value of our inventory was right now, he's turning over in his grave a few times. With the inflation of lumber and then the deflation of lumber, and now we're going back up again. The beauty is we're all in the same boat. No one has an advantage over others except operations, and we've got 3 guys that are constantly looking when we're for product that we're short of, and when it hits the warehouse, they gobble it up, everything. Not just a week's supply or 2 weeks supply, but maybe it's 6 months supply. But luckily we have the space to handle it. But we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. We're doing a little more with directs that we're able to get some product in quicker. And my people have done a great job of filling in holes, so it looks like we are complete. We have very few empty pegs. But we're getting creative on merchandising. So, patience is key during these times.
Great.
So,
excellent. Thank you. So let's move on. So the industry has obviously seen a boom, which has meant more feet in the doors of all your stores and operations. So how have you guys managed customer loyalty? And Greg, I want to start with you on this one because you have a really cool rewards program for your professional customers. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's called SunPro Rewards. For every dollar you spend at SunPro, you get a rewards point, provided you pay within terms. And the terms with most of our customers are 30 days. And so what it does is it innately manages your mix of customers. And so the good customers, those that are paying within terms, and you can redeem those points 3 different ways for a gift card. So let's say you do $1 million with us, you can redeem for a lot of $100 gift cards, right? Typically, we don't want people to use it that way. You can redeem for a travel voucher with local travel companies that are in our operations. But our preference is we do these signature SunPro Rewards trips, and the conversion rate is much more favorable to the redeeming party, so the contractor or the builder, when they go on these trips. And what's nice is you go on a trip with one of your customers, typically his or her spouse will come with them, and it's, we were in Dubai and Maldives earlier this year. We just got back from Switzerland a couple weeks ago, so we offer between 3 and 4 trips on an annual basis. And the redemption rate for that trip to Dubai and then the Maldives afterwards was about 2 million points for a couple to go, so 1 million points per person. That means that individual has spent $2 million with us, paid within terms, and we have no problems rewarding customers like that. So it's very extravagant. It's grown into something bigger than I ever imagined it would be. We used to market it, now we just kind of back off, and it has its own momentum. But so that serves our builders, right? The guys that are building big multifamily jobs and single family operations and stuff. Our hardware, our Joe and Sally who come into the store and buy from us, going on these signature SunPro Rewards trips, probably not feasible to them, but they can use those points to go ahead and redeem for gift cards or for travel vouchers. And so SunPro has always had a pretty good position when it comes to customer loyalty, largely because of those rewards trips. And even those that don't go on it, they hear about the trips, and I think some have aspirations to eventually get to, buy a few $100,000 worth of hardware or lumber if they're building their own home or multiple homes, and maybe go on a trip in the future. But yeah, that's the foundation of our loyalty program.
Great. Mike, how do you guys manage customer loyalty there at HomeCo?
Well, I think it starts with us in the internal customer service, treating our employees with respect. Our vendor customers are fantastic. We've developed really great relationships with the Traegers and the Midwest and Orgill and some of you that are here today. But by delivering on time, complete, good quality products, we buy a little better lumber, a little better most of the time when we can get it. But just not having, we're solving our customers' problems or helping them build that house, or we're helping that person with our people inside, fix that faucet. So it's by really concentrating on the shopping experience, exceeding our customers' expectations. That's our goal.
Great. And Ian, what does customer loyalty look like for you?
So I may be throwing some cold water on this conversation. So pre-COVID, I would have echoed everything that was said on this stage. Ontario, Canada was the second most locked down place in all of the world next to Australia. So we curbside multiple times. We got to the point where you couldn't even come up to the store door and order something. You had to do it online or on the phone. Then we had to do it. You had to walk it to the parking lot, and we had to put it in your trunk. And it was hellish, to say the least, right? So during that, and I'll tell you right now, the independent hardware store was built to manage a crisis like this. We were built to offer customer service. Before we were able to answer the call when this pandemic happened as independent retailers who offered customer service. Our big box competitors fell on their faces. They were not able to do the curbside and at least in a lockdown state like we were, and provide that product to the customer. It was painful for them. So we saw a boom, a painful boom, but still a boom in customers that we never saw before. And we were like, this is fantastic. They're experiencing our store, customer service. How do we retain them? As soon as curbside lifted, we saw a migration back to the big box, and we're like, hey, wait a second, where'd you go, right? So pre-COVID, I would have sat there with a very positive. Today, I sit there and I ask the question, I'm here to learn. I'm here to talk to some other dealers to truly understand how do we keep those customers, post-COVID, because we've earned it from a customer service perspective. So I don't have that answer. I know that we as a management group, we talk about it. And, honestly, we have to find a way through training and customer service to really earn that loyalty. Right now, it's in where we live, it's if you have the product, you're going to sell it. So it's really product availability loyalty at this point in time. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your candor. Appreciate it. So we've talked a lot about the last 18 months, which are incredibly important, but let's shift focus and let's look at the future. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years, and what do independent home improvement retailers have to do to compete? Ian, we'll start with you this time.
We need product. I have to be honest, right? So, like I said, the pandemic showed that we were built for this. From a customer service became more paramount than it ever was before. When we talk about experience, so we were blessed to, our one store was selected as the best hardware store in Canada this week, earlier this week. And when I look at that, when we built it with experience. We wanted it to be different. We wanted it to be as far away from the big box experience as you could get, and it is truly that. And I believe we need to develop experiences in our stores at the seasonal outdoor living, at the paint, at the you have to sell the dream. And I believe that that's where our industry needs to go in terms of the store experience. We're moving our stores to that to make sure that we earn that loyalty we talked about the best we can.
Greg, what does the industry look like in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have some serious concerns. I mean, some of the trends that I see right now, and I know both of these gentlemen have seen it, but that migration back to the big box store, Home Depot and Lowe's, highly frustrating, especially when you did your best to try and be sticky for those particular customers. But we made a conscious decision that if you want to go and buy panels 7/16 OSB or CDX from Home Depot, which we know is a loss leader for that organization, go ahead. You're probably not our best customer profile, and they invariably come back and start buying from us again, whether it's a small, general contractor or even in the retail space. And so there's certain customers we don't want to do business with, and we're okay not being sticky to them because those are the ones that are not paying on time and are very much price buyers. But my concern is, so really two takeaways from this pandemic for us is we will diversify deeper our supply chain. Perfect example, and it's not really relevant to hardware, but I think it conveys the strategy, is EWP, engineered wood products. So, the LVL and I-joist. We have a supplier that we were single sourced with, and in the LBM space, it makes sense to be single sourced just because there's significant rebates in the back end when that's how they reward you, reward your loyalty. Well, this particular supplier fell flat in their face, put us on allocation, and really almost didn't put us out of business, but really hamstrung us. And so we had to go and qualify an additional EWP supplier. Now we work with 4 different EWP suppliers. So you absolutely have, and that's just fundamental business. But when I came into this business, I just was told, well, with EWP, you go with one guy. And it makes sense because it lowers your cost basis and you're better able to serve your customer. Well, I completely disagree with that statement. We should have diversified early on. We wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now. And so diversification. And then secondly, I have a concern about ability to buy. You really need to manage your supply chain aggressively, but as the big guys get bigger, their position, if I'm a mill operator, I'm going to sell to the guys that are first position. Well, that's Home Depot, obviously, and Lowe's. Second position is probably BFS in the national space, right? And then you have these regional consolidators like US LBM and Kodiak Building Partners, and then you can belong to a buying co-op, right? Where we happen to be Do It Best members or LMC, whoever it is you're buying from. But unless you're a part of a buying co-op, I don't know, you're down below 10th position, and not certainly a priority for a mill or an operation that's trying to sell you material. And so, I'm not suggesting you have to get bigger to be in the business, but in the LBM space, that certainly seems to be the trend. In the hardware space, I think there's always going to be a need, to Ian's point, for a small town, independent hardware operator. I just wonder if certain product categories will become more valuable and other product categories more commoditized, and therefore you manage your mix of product offerings better to suit the independent, the customer that comes to your store because you're an independent family operated in the community, kind of sponsoring their soccer team organization.
Sure. Mike, what do you think the industry looks like in the next 5 years?
Wow. I wish I would have been asked this question 5 years ago, because I would have never guessed it. But as far as we're concerned, the way we view, we just started an e-commerce, which we feel is going to be an avenue to a lot of more commercial business. So we feel that brick and mortar is still going to be viable with e-commerce and technology, and consolidation concerns me with my co-op, LMC, but we've really got to rely on our relationships with our vendors to keep us viable, and to make sure that we're on the same playing field with the boxes and the large lumber chains, hardware chains, whatever. So, but the people that understand culture with that service aspect, I think that's going to come into play more in the future. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. We have just a couple minutes, so let's end on a fun note. If you guys weren't in the home industry or home improvement industry, what would you be doing? Mike, what would you be doing if you weren't at HomeCo?
I would love to purchase from the Orient. That's always fascinated me, but I was never smart enough to get out of the lumber business. So, but purchase from where? I didn't hear the Orient, overseas.
Ian, what would you be doing?
Hey, Mike, that first non-business class flight, I think that would probably be the end of that. Because I'll tell you, there's nothing that sucks more than taking this size of body and shoving it in an idle seat for 11 hours. But, you know, I gave this some thought, and I got to tell you, if I could afford it, I'd probably be a farmer. I have to tell you, raising my kids on a farm, which we do now, but our day job pays for the farm. But there's nothing better than being able to build that and just be part of the land. And I think that's what I'd do if I could afford that.
Okay. Greg, what would you be doing?
So I'm not lying either, Ian. I was going to say farmer too, but I got to say something. So my dad used to say, my dad was a dentist, and he goes, listen, if I had a chance to do it all over again, this is unsolicited advice to kids, right? Because most of it was unsolicited. I would have been a truck driver or a phys ed teacher. And I said, that's really easy for you to say as a dentist with more disposable income than probably both those professions. But if there's no limitations placed on this, I'm going to go back to my grade school dreams. I would have been a professional hockey player playing for the Leafs right now.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, there's no limits, right? I mean,
The Montreal Canadiens.
Dream
Let's
big.
go with there, right?
you live in Ontario.
Well, thank you guys so much. I want to give you guys a couple minutes. Do you guys have any departing thoughts for our audience?
I'll go first.
Sure.
Like I said earlier, the industry found me. I didn't aspire to go into the LBM and hardware space, but I could not be happier. You mentioned you'd like to travel internationally overseas. I did that for a number of years. Lived in New York for 8 years and was in Russia and the Middle East and Europe. And once you achieve status, it was Delta in my case, you're not in those economy comforts, that first step, and then you get into some of these first class. So it got a little bit better, but it was old. And it was when I was raising my family, and if I had these farmer aspirations, I couldn't be further away from the farm when you're on a plane going to Russia. And so I would just say, cherish the industry for what it is. I love being in the hardware and the LBM space, and for all the reasons that these gentlemen have mentioned up on stage. And I think based on some of the smart money that is now investing in the space, specific with Bain Capital taking ownership of US LBM, they're recognizing the value of the LBM in the hardware space. And so it's a great place to be. It's not all about getting an MBA and going into the investment banking or management consulting. I mean, hardware is pretty exciting at times, and it allows for a very healthy life, work, or personal life / work balance, if that even exists. And so I love the space and plan on finishing out my career in LBM and hardware.
Great, thanks. Ian, any parting thoughts, words of wisdom?
So, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the days are long and the years are short, right? And when you take a look at taking things for granted, we take things for granted. We take our family for granted. We take our staff for granted. We take our position, our businesses, and then 5 years pass, 7 years pass, and we may have just run so fast that we didn't take time to stop and say, okay, what are we doing, right? Cherish your people. This is what we do. We're all in the people business. The relationships with vendors. We got stuck by being exclusive to a vendor as well, and I went, we were loyal forever, and just make sure those relationships are strong, and walk in your store, in the front door, like a customer. Don't go in the back office door. Don't, scooch in past so you don't get asked a plumbing question. Walk in the front door of your stores and see what your customers see. You know what? It's truly the future of this industry is going to be the experience that you provide. And it's going to be so much more exciting, and it's going to be fun, and it really is, because that challenge is phenomenal when you actually start to wrap your arms around it and think, wow, I'm going to go do something a little different, something a little unique maybe. And it's okay to be unique. It's okay to be different.
Great. Mike?
This industry's been great to me and my family. Like I said, I'm on the twilights of my career. I'm 62, so I have about, 25 years left in me. I'm a technical idiot, so technology just scares the hell out of me, and that's going to continue to rise because I don't see myself changing. But, my people, I've got a great people. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got great vendor partners. We have a lot of fun, and that's the key. Is we continue to have fun and find new ways to have fun. So, I'm going forward. I'm just going to keep having fun.
Great. Well, Mike, Ian, Greg, congratulations on your Top Guns Awards. Congratulations on amazing operations. It's been a pleasure talking with you all today, and we really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you.